It's good to be here. I will tell you that this panel is about the two people to the right of me. I'm excited to be here with these guys. I think between them, there's around 55 years of experience in the realm of tribal broadband or tribal communications, and so there's a lot of experience that's represented here. And who better to hear from than someone who's walked a mile, but maybe that you want to walk. So the title of our talk today is keeping the community informed, and why it's critical. And I think you're going to come out of this hopefully with a good understanding of some of the things that you won't have to hopefully learn the hard way as maybe the guys up here did. So let me introduce our panelists and we'll get right into it. Kristan Johnson is the operations manager of TOUA, Tohono Utility Authority in Sales, Arizona. The reservation size is a little bit larger than the state of Rhode Island. And if I remember correctly, you've got a little over 3,000 tribal members. Is that correct that you're serving? Yeah. Okay, so roughly 4,000. So there's a huge geography here, and there's 4,000 subscribers. They provide electric, water, wastewater, and telecom on the reservation, and it's quite a large territory. Kristan graduated from the University of Arizona with a degree in business management. She has over 20 years experience in telecom, and the last 13 of those she has been the operations manager for TOUA. Kristan has led the migration from copper facilities to fiber to the home, and their fiber journey began in 2017 with a BIP award, and has culminated with 3 grant wins in 2022 that will bring TOUA to over 700 route miles of fiber, providing service to around 90% of the tribal residents, with the remaining being served by fixed broadband wireless. Right next to me here, we have Ernie Rasmussen. He is the current executive director of Bigfoot Telecom of the Colville tribes. He is the previous digital equity manager for Washington State Broadband Office and the tribal liaison for the Washington Department of Commerce. Ernie has over 30 years of experience in Indian country. The goals of Bigfoot Telecom include this: to serve 100% of the homes and the community anchor institutions, to provide robust, reliable, and scalable and future-proof network. He also says that buying into Indians should not be a feel-good story. Buying Indians should mean buying the best. So that is a definite commitment to quality there. So with that said, today's session is going to be more of a dialogue. So I look forward to hearing the responses from both Ernie and Kristan. We'll start off with a discussion regarding project planning and the importance of community action, and we'll let Ernie take the first run at that.
Thank you, Jeff. Sounds like mic is on good. First, acknowledgement and thank you to the Gila River Indian community for providing us this opportunity to share our experience, so Wawana Miigwech Yamago, thank you for this opportunity. As Jeff had mentioned, with over 30 years of experience, and I like to joke that I'm an executive director in recovery. I was a nonprofit executive director. That it was just it was one of those things in Indian country where they're looking for they need answers to everything. I ended up going over to state government and found out that state government is similar in that regard, and I'm a state government executive in recovery currently. Happily back at the Colville tribes, happily back in service and direct service to a tribal community, and so that feels good. It's where my heart is, and it's where I belong. One of the things, the keys, that we hear along the way is, our tribal governments are in this position of, answering all of these challenges. In this case, it's broadband. And we were tasked with this idea of to go get the grant. And we heard that over and over. And it became one of those things where we'd go and we'd apply for a grant and perhaps we'd fail. And what we came to realize is we weren't basing it on our vision. And in Indian country, there's a lot of vision out there about what our community should be. A community of choice, a community where we want to live, a community where we want to raise our kids. And we knew that we needed to get to the point of action, that we needed to get to the point where we were having projects that were successful in creating this great thriving place where we wanted our kids to say, this is where I want to stay. This is where we want our kids to feel like they want to be there. And what was missing in the middle was that strategy, that plan that was necessary for us to actually get from that vision to action, to actually implementing, and being able to successfully get a grant that is based on a vision, that employs a strategy, that leads to action, and leads to this transformation of community into a community of choice. But we never get there without listening to the community. We have to have that opportunity to listen to community and listen to what they want, not just what they need, because we oftentimes hear those needs, those immediate needs. We're in that position now with the COVID pandemic, saying we need broadband. But yet, what is it that we really want out of broadband? One of the things that I've said and I've heard from our communities is that we don't want a tool that's going to exacerbate the divide in our communities. We don't want a tool that's going to create this division, further division, and grandmothers and grandfathers now curse the day that the internet showed up because they no longer talk to their kids and they all have a device in their hands. And they're even in the same household, but they don't spend time together anymore. So how do we take this tool and use it to actually preserve culture and to, again, create that community of choice? So these are some of the things that, again, as a economic development planner and now a broadband executive, that guide me and provide us that ability to lead projects that are going to have those effective outcomes that are going to lead to, again, that choice, that a community of choice, the development of a community of choice. So, and that's, again, that community listening process and community engagement process that provides us that feedback to make sure that we create a meaningful tool that will resonate with the community and a cultural connection, that there's a strong cultural match between the work we do and the outcome of what the community is desiring is that's where we are. So I want to make sure I give time for it.
That's excellent, Ernie. A very good point. And at the end of the day, the things that we really want to accomplish are education and economic development and enhanced healthcare, things that make a real difference on the reservation. So that was a great explanation of how we can involve the community on the planning stage. So we get a grant or we secure a loan design. Kristan, would you walk us through the process of what it looks like in your instance to deploy fiber to the home in a village?
Okay, so, I'm very fortunate to have the ground laid for me from my predecessor. So I'm not saying it's easier, but a lot of the groundwork is done as far as, our permitting, our encroachments. The main or one of the final things that we have to put in place is our cultural clearances. And we have a really good rapport with our cultural preservation office. So at that point, it's up to us to go out to each community and to talk and share what we're bringing to their village. And we then hear the needs of what their community wants. So we're at their community meetings, then we go to the district meeting, and then we're able to come back and then formulate our plan to move forward and begin construction. We introduce all aspects. We introduce the processes of who they can expect in their community, what time frame, just so that there's no surprises and that they understand that it's not something we do overnight. That first you'll see our contractor coming in, or you'll see our field data come through, collecting the information for where the water lines are, the electric, where our existing copper is. And then once that's done, our contractors will come through. And while we have been contracting a lot with CCI, we introduce them, that they do have some native that work with them, but we also provide a familiar face so that they're a little more comfortable with that. And then because we have the electric department in our company, they're going to come next to hook up our electronics to the electric side. And then finally, telephone will come back to make that final connection.
That's good, Kristan. So what element would you say that the education of the community plays in your deployment?
It plays a lot now. I wish I knew a whole lot then, well before the pandemic. Learning now, the education component is one of the hardest obstacles we face because one, language barriers, language understandings, the fear of technology. It's just an unknown place to be. I mean, they're used to their phone just being a device they pick up to talk to somebody. As we're deploying fiber, as we're deploying wireless, we share the possibilities of what it can do and where we're going with it. And a lot of questions come back, but it's not so much in our younger generation. I mean, they're fine with it. And a lot of times we see that younger generation bringing mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, uncle to our office to sign up, and we talk to them with the permission of the adult. But it's the elders that we have a hard time because they don't know. But being able to walk them through and to make them comfortable with technology is one of the struggles that I see now. And going back to, let's come to your village in your environment where you're comfortable. And if we have to bring somebody who speaks the language, then we'll do that. Because although they do speak English and technology is an English-driven force, sometimes the education has to come from the language that resides within the villages or the reservations.
Very good. Ernie, I see you nodding your head. You have something you want to add to that?
Well, there's so much of that digital equity and digital skills development that is necessary. But I think back a little bit of a story back when, let's say, after we started getting away from copper, fiber was being deployed. The internet was taking off in places outside of rural America. And there was all this promise of being able to connect across great distances. And I remember my nephew was deployed in Okinawa, and his grandparents were looking to have a audio or a video call with him, and they just couldn't wait. And the minute we turned it on, it crashed, and they cursed the internet. And it became clear at that point, they've lost faith in it. They've lost, there was some sense that, this is never going to live up to what it's supposed to. And we're now at that point where we can actually begin to start saying, yeah, it has the opportunity to deliver to us just as much as it's delivered to anyone. And so, folks like Kristan that are out there, boots on the ground in the homes, along with partners, and doing this work it warms my heart to say we're at this point.
That's good. Very good. So, when you begin to deploy into a village, what is it like when you begin to consider the obstacles you may face when doing a home install? What does that look like for you guys, Kristan?
It's very different. I mean, there's no cookie cutter home. I mean, we have traditional homes. We still have adobe homes. We have, brick cement homes. I mean, it's very different, but it's very rural. I mean, from Sells, our main capital of our reservation, it's 2 hours in any direction except for south to get to there. But it's dry. It's a lot of dust. We have to do a lot of dust control. We have to be cautious when we're mounting something to the home so that we don't lose the integrity. Although it could be cement plaster on the outside, if it's adobe in between that, we want to make sure that we're not, hurting their home. Or if we're deploying wireless, when we put the CPE, the customer premise equipment on their home, that we're not harming their roof. So it's very different. Because we're in our company, we're the only utility that goes inside, having to go into their environment, sometimes it is very difficult for my staff as well. In some cases, we still have homes where there's little rooms, if you will, like a little, I don't know, little community. They have like their kitchen and then their living quarters and another living quarter and then maybe their living room. So having to connect those, that's very difficult. Or mobile homes, having to install our equipment off of the actual home and putting it on a stud post outside near the electric meter. So there's a lot of diversity, a lot of different.
A lot of opportunity to be successful with various applications.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice. So, how does the construction process affect the members of the village, and why is it important to communicate with them ahead of time regarding that?
Me? Oh, it's very important because some of the communities are very, quiet, subtle, and off on their own, and we're bringing in, trenchers, we're bringing in backhoes, we're bringing in, things that aren't familiar to them. We're now in their backyard. We're actually in their property, in their territory. So it's important to really discuss it and to make sure that we clean up, really clean up after we leave. If we don't leave it the same, better than how we found it. And we do find those obstacles because a lot of our ground disturbance hasn't been done for us for about 40 years. So rocks, we're puncturing tires, we're, having vehicles scrape the bottom of, because, what we think we're doing to help, sometimes is harmful. So it's a very sensitive part of it, and being able to have a person come, that they can come to and speak openly about some of their concerns.
That's good. So would you say that educating them about what's coming with construction, does it help you on the back end?
It does. It does. Especially with the machines, and we've had it in the past, not this go around of construction, but in the past when we were closer to the border, sometimes their machines, and they'll look out for the machines, because we've had people try to turn on the backhoes, or kids play on it, for safety, just so everybody's helping each other out. But it's very important that we communicate it so they know what to expect. They know who's going to be in their area. And I think sticking with one contractor helps a lot, because we become familiar with them as a reservation, that, we know who's there.
That's good. Very good. So I'll open this up to either one of you. With the experience you have, what are a few things that maybe you've learned in deployment that are important, but you didn't realize in the beginning that they were important?
I'll jump in there because in the back of the room over here we have the Colville tribes, and we've got a couple of key people that saw the deployment of about a 70-mile fiber deployment across the reservation successfully be completed after many attempts and failures for various reasons. And some of them was what you were just talking about. What's below the surface was unknown, even though the as-builts, even though the project documents had said, this is a roadbed that's ready for micro trenching. Come to find out, it is not. That it just wasn't. But what we learned was getting the right person in the right job to actually manage the project. And that, for the Colville tribes was, that person is in the back of this room. And she just did this tremendous job of being able to hold contractors accountable to a task and put them into a position where the project would be successful. And so that was finally completed this past year. We're fortunate to have that. Prior, we tried other people to, manage that project. And so it was one of those things where we're not going to fail. We're not going to give up. We're going to get the right person in there, and we've got the right person now. And so I with another almost 100 miles of fiber that need to be deployed, we're confident that we're going to get there.
That's great. This seems like an extremely daunting task, and it is. I once saw a drawing, and the drawing was it was a frog that was being swallowed by a snake, and the frog had his arms out. His head was in the snake's mouth, but he was literally choking the snake. And sometimes it feels like that to do what many of you are going to set out to do. But I want to encourage you. You can do it, and perseverance is the key. You need to have some key relationships in place, and there's nobody better than the tribal entities that are at this meeting to speak to about the relationships that they have, so that you can get set up in a way that you can prosper in your deployment. Certainly, Ernie and Kristan would welcome you coming up to them. I'm happy to speak with you. And again, there are many other tribal entities that are here would be happy to speak with you. I think that's about all the time we have, but I think we have time for a few questions. Are there some questions out there for the panelists? Going once?
Jeff, if there's one thing I can add that we learned through this whole thing is data. We didn't have it before. We, keeping track. We do have a field, we have an inspector and a data collector with construction at all times so that we can record water lines, underground power lines, archaeological sites, all of the things that we encounter while we're in the field. And so we've come leaps and bounds with our data collection and our mapping, and we use a platform with Esri to make sure that we have that. So anywhere down the line, we also use the CMS or the customer managed services through Calix to maintain a lot of records and data so that at any given point in time, we can find out that information.
Very good. Very good. Good stuff. All right. Any questions? All right, Godfrey, I believe it's yours.